Welcome, everyone. We'll wait a couple minutes so people can get in.
Welcome, everyone.
I always feel like this is the most awkward part of the webinar.
And just know I'm in the background, Amy, checking on our other two panelists to see if they're in the attendees page.
Okay, perfect. All right, our participants are still climbing, so we'll wait another minute or two. If you have colleagues of yours that are texting or emailing saying they are in the waiting room or for some reason they can't get in, there's lots of people using Zoom this week as schools start to open. So we don't have a waiting room on. So ask them to leave Zoom altogether and then try the link again, and that should fix the problem.
Welcome, Pete. I'm going to give you co-host privileges.
Perfect.
And that means I will come off camera.
All right, it's 1 o'clock and our numbers are still climbing, but we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with just some general updates and reminders, and then we'll jump into the content. So as people are still entering, they'll be able to kind of catch up. So just a few quick reminders. This is day 3, so I know we've covered a lot of this. I'm new to the group. You haven't seen my face before, so I'm Amy Colburn out of ESD 189 in Anacortes. So just a couple of reminders for today. We have myself as the main host. Pete's going to jump in and help with Q&A questions that can be answered live. But also remember that we have 2 ASL interpreters with us here today, and they're spotlighted on your screen. We also have closed captioning available. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom bar, you can turn that on and off for yourself. Don't worry about attendance. The fact that you're here, your attendance is already done. So attendance will be pulled out of Zoom. And please be patient as we process clock hours. So over the last 2 weeks, we've had over 7,000 participants over the course of all of our LMS offerings. So those clock hours could take a little longer than normal, but you will get an email with clock hour information. So don't worry about that. The slide decks for today will be posted in the chat. If they aren't already, they'll be there pretty soon. And the videos today will be posted and available over the course of the next week. So those, we have to get them all ready to post and make sure they're ADA compliant and have all the right features. So those will be available as soon as we can get them out. Just another reminder about using the Q&A. So the chat function we have enabled for the panelists to share links and any other communication we need to send out, and you will have access to the Q&A. And if we could try to keep the Q&A to Microsoft, we might be showing other features and tools, and we probably just won't be able to get to questions outside of the Teams platform. So just so you know, we're getting to questions as fast as we can, but we have close to 300 participants. And so we'll do the best we can with questions, but just know we might not be able to get to all of them. And let's see, on demand. So if after these 3 days you're still wanting more information, we do have the Microsoft Teams on demand classes, and I think we can post a link to that in the chat as well. So if you're wanting to go over this content at your own pace and a little bit more in depth, make sure you sign up for those on demand, that on demand option as well. So I think that covers all of the announcements. So let's get started here. So again, this is part 3 of the Microsoft Teams LMS 101 training. My name is Amy Colburn out of ESD 189 in Anacortes, and my co-host, I will let him introduce himself. Pete, if you want to jump in.
Yep, thanks, Amy. I'm Pete Phillips, North Central ESD here in the middle of the state in Wenatchee, and glad that you could all join us for this training.
Thanks, Pete. All right, so we would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the First Peoples past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and call to action to practice sustainable 7th generation thinking and caring for the land and people. So these questions that you see on the screen were the same as what we shared with you on day 1 and 2. So just want to take a moment to let you look at those questions one more time and just kind of reflect on the questions and the prompts. Okay, so Pete and I have introduced ourselves. So Pete out of 171. You heard from Christina at the very beginning, and she's out of ESD 112. We might also have some other people kind of join us. We have Amber out of 121. So this slide decks that you'll get access to, everyone's name has a link to their email address. So if you're wanting to get in touch with your local ESD person around these LMS topics, you'll have access to those within the slide deck. So just a quick kind of review of where we've been and then what we're going to cover today. So in part 1, you looked at accessing and navigating Microsoft Teams. And then day 2 was really thinking about what materials and resources are available and how you can use those to engage students. And part 3, so we're going to look at assessments and communications, and more specifically, we'll look at quizzes and assessments. How do you create those within Teams? We'll look at the gradebook options and some other record keeping, and then student and parent communication. So we have a lot to get to today, and so we'll see if we can get it all covered. So let's start with a Zoom poll. So this, similar to what you did yesterday, the questions are a little bit different. So the first question, we just want to kind of see what was your exploration like with adding content or organizational structure? And then what are you most excited to learn today? So I'm going to launch the poll. Make sure I get the right one. So on your screen, you should see that poll. So as we see these start coming in on my end, so as the co-host that launched it and all the other panelists, we can see what's happening. So at 20 seconds in, we have 146 responses. So about half of the participants have voted so far. Half of you have voted.
I just want to add that this is great. As we move through these 3 days, you guys are becoming Zoom experts, and everyone, or the engagement is increasing. We're getting a lot of responses here.
All right, so we'll give it another 10 seconds or so. So if you haven't voted yet, sometimes on Zoom, this is a pop-up window. So if you can't see the poll, it might be hiding behind another window. So you might have to exit full screen Zoom or just kind of look around it. It's probably hiding somewhere. And if you don't get to it, it's okay. We don't keep track of this for attendance or anything like that. So if for some reason you can't get there or you can't find it, no worries. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and then I'm going to share it so we can take a look at what we've got here. So it looks like most of the highest percentage of folks for number 1 is just kind of dabbled a little, and that's great. So Microsoft Teams is a big program, and there's lots of stuff there. So anything that you can do to kind of get in there and just start playing around is awesome. And those rock stars, those 5 people, you guys want to be, and those folks that are getting there, reach out to your colleagues and see how you can collaborate together to build content in your teams. And then most excited to learn today is student and parent and family communication. So that will be towards the end of the session, but we will get there today and talk about what kind of communication is available. A little bit of a spoiler alert, it's pretty limited in Teams, but the things that we can do, we'll be sure to show you today. So I'm going to stop share. If that poll is still up on your screen, just go ahead and exit out and it should go away. So this slide should look familiar from the last couple of days. So just as a quick reminder before we jump in that we want to be thinking about our instructional framework. So those things that we know are good for our students. Thinking about universal design for learning, how do we make things accessible for all of our students? Social emotional learning, especially in this current kind of learning environment that we're all in, how can we make sure we're meeting those emotional needs for all of our students and checking in with them? And then thinking about culturally responsive teaching for all of our students. So again, those links will be available in your slide deck, and you can play around and learn more about those 4 things at as you see fit. Okay, so we're going to start with quizzes and assessments. So there's a couple things I know that kind of came up over the last couple days. So before we jump into the real kind of nitty gritty of the rubrics and adding a quiz and thinking about formative assessments, I do want to cover just a couple things that I know have come up over the last couple days. So I'm going to jump back into Teams. And this is your main landing page that you'll see when you log in. So there was some questions about deleting or archiving a team over the last couple of days. So I just want to go over that one more time. So if you're on your Teams landing page and we look at the little boxes, so if I click on the little 3 dots, remember 3 dots give you more settings or options or just something to do. So if I have like a test class from 2017-18, you know, that's been a couple of years ago, I don't necessarily need it anymore. If I go to those 3 little dots in the corner of that box, the very last option is delete the team. So when I click delete, it's going to ask me, are you sure you really want to delete, which is a nice feature. So sometimes, you know, the cat steps on the keyboard and the next thing you know, the whole thing's gone. So in Teams, it will ask you. So you have to click, I understand that everything will be deleted, and then you can delete. So if you have students in a team and you delete it, all of the content and grades, everything from that team will be deleted. So just a cautionary note before you delete things. But if you just have a sandbox or something that you've kind of just played around with, easy to delete and there's no worries. So I'm just going to cancel. I can also, if I don't know if I want to delete something yet, but I don't, like if as I'm building teams, I have more and more teams and it just kind of gets cluttered, I can also hide a team. So this is kind of a nice feature. If you're like me and you get nervous about deleting anything, I can hide, and now it just kind of cleans up my space. So I can, and then at the bottom here, you can see you have your teams, but then there's another little tab and it's really small, but it says hidden teams. So if I open that little caret, any teams that I've hidden show up, and now I can show, if I go to those 3 little dots again, I can show and it will move back up into the main list. So just a quick kind of organizational feature, how to delete or hide. Archiving, as a teacher, you will not have access to archive a team. Districts can choose to archive teams if that's something that they're going to do at the district level. So you'll want to just check with your district to see if that's something that they plan on doing, or if it's going to kind of be up to you to decide how you manage teams from like year after year. The other thing I wanted to talk about really quick was the using the Meet to meet with different channels. So I know for some of you that is kind of how you're using Teams, is really for the Meet feature. So this is probably not going to be the answer that a lot of you were hoping for, but if you have there's kind of some workarounds. So it's not going to be a really quick fix. First to note is that if you have a channel that's private, so that's where you've only invited certain students, you can't schedule a meet for just that one channel. So you'd have to do it live. The other thing though is once you have a meet, so I'm going to click meet just so we can see. And so you're going to see my kitchen behind me, so I won't have my background anymore. But if I do meet now, when you have, oh, I turned my camera off. I guess I can turn that on just so we can, oh, maybe it won't let me. Okay. It might be because I'm already in a Zoom. So anyway, on here though, if you look at the right side of your screen, there's a join link. So if I click that link, I can now put it in somewhere on another channel, somewhere else in Teams. I could email that out. I can use it just like any other link, like a Zoom link, or, you know, just how any other way that you normally use a link. So I could share that with other people and then they could join my meeting. So it's not an easy fix, but I think that might work for some of you who are trying to get multiple groups to join into one meeting. You might try that and see if that works for you, but it's a little bit of a hack as opposed to a feature built into Teams. Okay, so those were like the two big things that I wanted to cover before we jump in. So now let's get into rubrics. And Pete, feel free to, maybe I'll just ask you if there's any questions that we can answer now, but feel free to also just interrupt if you need to.
Yeah, you bet. I think that's a great workaround for the meets. Just remember, you can always do a live meet outside of your Teams and invite specific people into it that you want to, like Amy mentioned.
Yeah, and I think actually, oh, go ahead, Pete.
Yep, I was just gonna, a couple questions on Teams. Can you copy content from one team to another?
Yeah, well, so there's kind of multiple answers to your question, and the answer is yes. So you can, once you have content, it's all just kind of saved in the cloud. So you can pull that content into other places. If you know right away that you want to share content with multiple classes, you can build that into your assignments as well. So maybe we can even look at that when we get into rubrics. We'll kind of pop into the assignment area.
Great. Sorry, Amy, a couple other questions just around the deleting and archiving of classes or of teams with your district. And is there a way to export a team and save it to your computer?
Oh, that's a good question. And I actually, Pete, do you know the answer to that?
Well, I think you kind of covered the options. You can hide it if you don't want it on your dashboard of Teams. But as far as exporting, I don't think there's a way to take the whole team, but you can definitely, like you're going to show, when you create a team, a set of folders are created and the notebook is created. You can take that content and you can move it other places in the cloud or on your desktop.
Yeah, I was just running through in my mind the different ways. And I think probably what they're asking for is not an option, like to just take the whole thing as like a big like collection. But there's certainly ways that you can keep the documents and stuff, because they're, like Pete just said, they're those items are created in folders that are even saved just within your Office 365. So yeah, thanks, Pete. Any other questions?
And I just popped in a help file that I had searched up for exporting and deleting your teams that has some more information, but it is exactly what you guys said.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Christina. All right, so let's jump into rubrics, and then if there's other questions, we can certainly kind of pop around in there. But there is a lot of content to cover, so we'll try to, I can easily get birdwalk, so we'll try to keep focused on the things that we want to cover today. So to get to rubrics, and this is something in Teams that you can be searching all over the place. In rubrics, you have to go to assignments, and then you actually have to go in like you're going to create an assignment. So there's no way to directly create a rubric without kind of going through the process like you're ready to assign something. So if I click on create and then assignment, rubrics is under the point. So if I want to add rubrics, once I've added it once, it will be available over and over again, but I have to go in like I'm going to create an assignment first. So from here, I'm going to say add rubric, and a window pops up. So this one tells me there was a math rubric that I already created. So if I want to just add that one, I'm going to click on this just so we can see, but we'll start from scratch as well. So if I click on the math rubric and say next, I do get the option to make edits before I attach it. I'm going to get that notification to go away. Okay, so
this is the interpreter. Can we do a quick switch, please?
Mm-hmm.
You're all done.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I can edit the rubric once I select it, and I'm going to say cancel because I want to add a new one. So I'm going to go back to add rubric, and at the very top right of that little pop-up screen, the little plus new rubric, so that's how we're going to add a new one. And once we're here, I have all this these different options to create whatever kind of rubric I want. So I can give it a title. So again, the math rubric isn't overly creative, but let's just say we'll give it some kind of a title. If you want a description, you can have a description. Then at the top, you can tell it if you want this to have points or not. So there might be times where maybe it's a SEL check-in or something and it's a rubric and you just kind of want kids to think about it. Maybe there's no points, but if you want it to have points, you need to turn that on. And now I'll turn it off one more time. So if you're looking at the boxes, you can see that the numbers next to the boxes aren't there currently, but if I turn on points, they show up. So, and I can modify everything that's in these boxes. So the description is whatever that criteria is that you're thinking about. So we'll just say, is it colorful? You know, that's not a great description, but okay, we'll go with it. And then at the top, I can decide what do I want my grading criteria to be. So I can add more columns. So if I want more, I can just keep adding and adding. I can also duplicate. So if I just want a similar description for the criteria, but I want to modify it a little bit, once I have something in there, I could just copy and there's nothing in there, so it doesn't look the same, but you can copy categories. I can also remove categories. So once I click on it, a little trash can shows up. So like 1-point rubrics are pretty popular right now. So if you just wanted one category, like did you do it or not, you could just keep this one category and enter your criteria for that criteria. So I can just keep adding. So if I add another column, I can add another criteria and descriptions and just keep building my rubric with however many rows and columns you would like. So now that I have points, it defaults to evenly distribute the points, but you can, if you want one criteria weighted more than the other, you can manually change. So if I want this first one to be worth 40%, I would just need to keep, you know, and then if you want to split the other ones, so then 30 and 30. So you can manually enter percentages, or if you change your mind, you've done all that, and then you want to go back, this little button at the bottom, evenly redistribute weights, will go back to where it does that for you. So that's how you create a rubric. And then if you attach, the attach is also creating the rubric that is now saved within your teams. So now every time you go to make an assignment, if I go to add a rubric, that now I've already had that math rubric, and now I will also have the ELA rubric as an option. Okay, Peter, are there questions about rubrics? That's pretty much everything about rubrics, but is there specifics that we can help answer?
I don't think there are. I think
Okay.
you covered it all.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's look at how we create a quiz. So I'm just going to discard this, and I'll show you real quick. If I discard this, it's actually still gonna keep that rubric, but I'm just discarding the assignment. So if I say yes, and this is where I've just played around, because sometimes I'm like, well, I'm not sure what's gonna happen. So if you've created an assignment and you're nervous about that, you could always create one just to test, but know that, okay, it's taking a little while. Okay, teams, I'm nervous. Okay, whew, we're back. So it seems the internet seems to be lagging a little bit today, and I know for some of my other hosts and some of our other sessions. So I think it's just with kids back to school, I wonder if it's just having some problems. So, okay, so if I go back to create, let's just look one more time in assignment, and I hope it does what it should. So if I go to add rubric, oh good, it now has the math and it has the ELA rubric that I added today. So as you build those rubrics, they'll stay within your rubric kind of list. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel and discard. So let's, we're gonna move on to quiz. So in assignments, on day one, I know Andrew showed you assignments and quiz and then from existing. So that's when the question earlier today about reusing things from previous courses, that's where that from existing is. So just kind of a quick note. But let's go into quiz and play around. So in Teams, when you create a quiz, it's really creating a form, a Microsoft form. So if you're familiar with forms, this won't be a new experience for you. But for those of you that aren't, it's kind of like, it's just a survey, like a survey tool that you can, it turns it into a quiz for you. So from here, I could choose a quiz that I've already created, or I can create a new quiz. So let's create a new quiz just so we can see what that looks like from scratch. All right, so we can see at the top, the first thing is that it's telling me it changed to saved, but it will tell you if it's saving or if it is currently saved. And first thing, it wants a title. So I can just do week 2 quiz. At the right-hand side, there's also this little button that I can add an image. So if I click that option, I can do a image search. So using Bing, I can find an image from my OneDrive, or I can upload an image from my computer. So I won't worry about that for now. I can also, if I want to add a description or maybe some directions for students, I can add that under the title, but you don't have to. And then from here, I just can now start adding questions. So the first question, maybe I want, so the top kind of 4 are up here, but then if you click this little down arrow, there's more question types. So if I click on that, I can get a Likert scale. So that's where, you know, you might see something like rate your agreement with these prompts or something like that. And then you can do different sections. So there's all these kind of questions, but let's just add one just to see what this looks like. So we'll do a multiple choice. And maybe the first question is, so what is the capital of Washington State? So again, on each question, you have the option of including media. So that could be an image or a video. So maybe you have students that have needs like a video directions, or someone reading the question off to them. So you can add some media there to support students. And then you have the ability to add your options. So as I hover over these, you see some other things showing up, and we'll talk about those in just a second. So on your options, you'll just, you know, whatever, just like a normal kind of multiple choice. So now I only have 2 options, but I can add more. So I'm just going to add 4 more. That's kind of a standard multiple choice thing. So let's see. Okay, so now I have the 4 options that I want students to be able to see. So on the left-hand side, I can, if I grab these little 6 dots, I can move responses around. So you don't have to type them in the order that you want them. You can always move them. On the right-hand side, I can delete an option. So if I've typed something and I change my mind, I can delete it and it will go away. This next little one is little comment icon is really kind of cool. So if a student selects a response, you can give them immediate feedback. So if someone wrote Spokane, or if some student selected Spokane and you wanted them to go back and review something because you know that they got the answer wrong, you could type that message in for them to see, just to give immediate feedback. So a really nice feature to give that feedback to students. So maybe I might say, please look back through your notes. This isn't really super informative, but you get the idea. So you can add, and you could do that for every wrong answer or even a right answer. So maybe you want them to, there's a next step. So if they get it right, you want to give them directions for what to do when they see this kind of feedback. And then the last thing next to each question is a little check mark, and that's going to tell it that that's the correct answer. So we'd want to Olympia. So that's, I'm going to tell it that that's the correct answer. And at the bottom, I need to tell it how many points this is worth. So let's say this is worth 2 points. Obviously this question, there's only one right answer. However, if you had a question that you wanted there to be more, maybe there was more than one right answer, you could select 2. Oh, this one, I lied to you. There are ways that you can select more than right. Oh, here it is. Down right underneath next to points, you can select that there's multiple answers. I forgot about that part. Now it will let me select 2, and it will distribute the points evenly across those 2 right answers. So because I've said it's worth 2 points, if they only selected one of these, they would get 1 out of 2 points. I can also tell it that this question is required. So if you're doing a quiz, you probably want to make sure all of your questions are required. But if you're using a form as just a formative assessment, like just a check-in, maybe there's some questions at the end where you just, like a lot of times we'll ask folks, you know, is there anything else you want to tell me? And maybe that one's not required because kids could choose if they wanted to respond or not. So there's also the 3 little dots, and you can shuffle options. So that just means each kid will get a different assortment of options. So depends on which one is at the, you know, the order that they come in. If you're a math teacher or someone who's wanting to have some kind of math symbols, if you click math, you will see that it's now changed, and you have some more options for entering equations and into your, not only the prompt, but also the answer options. So if you don't want that, you just turn that on and off. If you don't want a subtitle, so that's where some people will have a question and then maybe there's a little bit more context or some additional information, you can turn that on and off as well. So as you just keep building the questions for your quiz. So I have one question and I'm going to add another one. And so you can, whatever question types you want, you just continue to build the quiz using the form. So from here, and we can, if we have time at the end, if there's more questions about forms, we can certainly come back. But there's so much in forms that we could spend a whole hour just here. So I want to make sure we get to everything else, but we can certainly come back. But I'm not going to spend too much more time in the question types. Just kind of as an FYI. So from here, the first time I made a quiz in Teams, I just kept looking around thinking, now how in the world do I get it back into the team? So, and it feels like, okay, I've done all this work, I'm ready to go. And if I look up at the top, this preview button will tell me what it looks like for students. So I can click that really fast. And now this is just telling me what the format looks like, which can be handy. So if I go back, okay, I keep looking. So theme. So this is, I can pick different backgrounds, colors. There's some fun things here. Okay, that still doesn't get me back into Teams. I can share it, but this is just giving me links. I can email. Okay, that's not it either. The next 3 little dots over are settings.
Can we just do a pause for just a second?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to switch the interpreters. Continue.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I keep looking in my settings. So this is where if you want to have a start and an end date. So if you want them to, after a week, maybe you want it to officially kind of close. So you'd have an end date. And there's some other notification settings and some different things. Show results automatically. So that's when I was talking about giving that feedback right away. You could do that show results automatically, and that's how kids can see that feedback. So just some other settings, but so this is where it's kind of tricky. And to get the form actually into Teams, you actually have to go back. So I'm even just gonna close. So I called this week 2 quiz and it's worth 4 points. I'm gonna close this because it's saved. So remember up here, it's already being saved. And I go back into Teams and it looks like it's gone. So the first time I made a quiz in Teams, I was like, did I really just do that whole thing? And now nothing, like I have to redo it, but not to worry. So we're gonna go back into Create and we're gonna say Quiz. And now that week 2 quiz that I just created is now part of the list. So this is one of those things that if the first time or the first couple times you make a quiz, it might be, you might have to go, okay, there was something about making a quiz and you have to go back. Remember, you build the quiz and then you have to go back in, select quiz again, and then it will show up in the list. So now I can add week 2 quiz and say next. There we go. And now I get where I can, it looks really a lot like another assignment. So I can add instructions if I want other instructions. Maybe I didn't put anything on the quiz, but I want to tell them something. So you get those features like you saw in an assignment. I can assign to the sandbox, or if I had somewhere else to send it to, and if I wanted to tell it what students to send it to, so is it all students or just want to assign it to a handful of students, I can make that choice here. So very similar to the assignments that you guys all looked at yesterday. I can also change the due date and the time. One thing to note, and because we'll talk about gradebook in just a few minutes, there is an option underneath assign to where it says don't assign to students added to this class in the future. So if you want old assignments to be, especially at the beginning of the year, we know they might have students that are switching around, and you want to make sure that they're included for all of the assignments, you'll want to edit this so that when new students get added, they get past assignments. So this option, of course, is up to you and or maybe your district team or your teacher team, but just something to think about. So if you want, you can edit this. And now I can say assign to all students added to this class in the future. So especially if you're thinking about like get to know you activities or something at the beginning of the year, make sure that's enabled just so students can have access even if they get added after a couple days.
So Amy, one question in this specific area, right in the middle, under the assign to box, you can assign this quiz to a specific team.
Yes, and I'm wondering.
But at the bottom, can't you assign it to a specific channel?
Let's click and find out. So this is only telling me that I can assign it to general.
Huh.
I think because those other two channels are private, they're not showing up. But if there was another open channel within this sandbox team, it would show up there.
I wonder, okay, this might not let me do this, but I'm gonna, just to test that, Pete, because that's a great question, because in the past, I know I've been able to do that. So when you're put on the spot to come up with names, it's really difficult. Okay. So standard, accessible to everyone. Let's just see if that lets us do it. Oh, okay, well, it went away. Let's see. Okay, so it did save it as a draft because I had it sent me out of assignment. So I'm gonna go back into week 2. And now let's see.
Yeah, I think that the answer then would be you're going to have to assign it to specific students if you want to assign it to a private channel.
Yeah, that's great.
Or you would probably have to start the assessment in that private channel. Possibly.
I'm just trying, just did a quick update. Yeah. So you'll want to, it looks like if you want to assign to certain students, you'll want to just use that option to select the students that you want in particular.
Another question, Amy, here, and you might have answered this already. Are these assignments and these quizzes available that even if you created them in the sandbox team, are they available to assign to other teams?
They should be. So if you, and I haven't created any quizzes in other teams to show you, but I believe when you go into that, when you first say add a quiz, any quiz that you've made would show up even if it's from a different team. And then one more kind of quick thing on this, on any assignment, you can add a category, and we'll look at where that comes into play in the grades. But if you have categories that you've, you know, like formative, or maybe you have quiz category. So as you add categories, you can tag them, and then the grades, you'll see where that comes into play. Okay. So I'm just going to save this. So now when I save, so I saved it, but I didn't assign it. So now I can go back in and I can assign this quiz. So now it comes up in under my assigned items. And if I go to post, So now it would show up as week 2 quiz, and now students would also be able to see it. Okay, so one more item that I just wanted to highlight. I don't think it was covered in the last 2 days, and if it was, you just get to see it twice. So there is, if you're brand new to Microsoft Teams, and class OneNote, so that's a whole kind of another integration. I just want to do a quick note that you don't have to use Class Notebook to use all of the other features of Teams. So you would still have assignments, you'd still have posts, grades, and all of that. Class Notebook is just another way to organize materials. So you might just check, you know, is your district wanting you to use Class OneNote? Is your school team or your colleagues, are you all gonna use Class Notebook? But just know that it's not required. So if it feels overwhelming, because OneNote or Microsoft Teams is a lot and Class Notebook is a lot. So if you're brand new to all of the different Microsoft tools, you could certainly just start with Teams and then add Class Notebook on as you get comfortable with the different features. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And then within assignments, if you look at the, let's just open the getting to know you. So I'm going to edit this assignment. Just want to show you that there's the ability when you're creating. So yesterday you guys looked at adding resources, and then here I added a Word document, but then I gave students their own copy to edit. So when you add a resource, there's an option. Oops. Let's just cancel. So I'll just go in and create an assignment just so you can see where that option is. So if you want to give students a template and they're just filling it in, you'll want to, if I add a resource, and in OneDrive, I just have this assignment template, and there's really nothing on there already, but just to attach it, just so you can see what this looks like. So on here, it says students can't edit. So if I just want them to be able to view it, that's like just adding a resource. But if oh geez, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. Okay, if I click on the 3 little dots, it comes up with the option that students can edit their own copy. So those are the 2 options you have if you're giving them a document that you want them to either look at, or if you want them to edit their own copy. So if I click that, students can go in, they can make all their, they can respond to prompts, they can do whatever you're asking them to do in the document, and they have their own copy that you've given them to start with, so they don't have to start from scratch. So just a nice feature I wanted to make sure people knew about in Teams.
Amy, can we jump back to the notebook tab real quick? There's a couple questions about notebooks.
Yep.
And Andrew kind of covered this, I think, on day 1.
Okay.
But within your team, when you create a team, under the class notebook, and then
Yep.
can we expand that folder list?
Yep.
Yeah, so a whole bunch of folders. This is kind of, Andrew described as this is the magic section. You don't really want to mess with this too much, but it creates a teacher notebook, and every student in your class gets a notebook, all within the team. And so it's very important to know you can go in and see and edit specific notebooks and specific tabs in class notebooks, but Teams kind of keeps that organized. So you don't want to move or delete anything, or else it'll affect your whole team and the whole class notebook. But that ability to dig deeper into specific content is here.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. That's a good reminder. There's a lot of background stuff going on. So yeah, if you mess around too much with it, it might not quite work the way you were hoping. And remember that class notebook, when you first start a new team, you'll have to create the class notebook. So if you're not sure if you want to use that, you would just wait and create it when you're ready. So none of this will be here until you create the notebook for the whatever team you're looking at. All right, so we're gonna move on. So I'm gonna make sure we're on track here. So the next thing we're gonna look at is grade books and record keeping. So the first thing I'll note is that talk with your district. So prior to this summer, actually, Microsoft Teams didn't integrate with like our normal kind of grade books like Skyward or Power Schools. And so But it looks like this summer, they actually did do some work and kind of made that option available. But I would talk to your district to see, does this gradebook in Teams talk to your whatever gradebook that your district is using for like attendance and all of that other stuff. So just you'll want to know what's happening with gradebooks. And if it's not that integration, your team's gradebook will kind of be like how we've traditionally used maybe like a paper gradebook where you're kind of just keeping track of everything there, but you know that eventually you'll have to transfer that over into your formal gradebook. So just a kind of a cautionary note. So we'll dig into Teams here in a second. There is not a way to take formal attendance, how we normally think of attendance in Teams. Just want to make sure everyone knows that. So let's go ahead and jump into grades. So under the General tab of your team, so it's not under each individual channel. So when you're looking at channels, you won't see grades up at the top. So under General, we can click on grades and let's just kind of explore and see what's here. So you'll see that on the left-hand side, your students are listed down the column, and then across the top are your assignments. So it starts in reverse chronological order. So the oldest thing is to the right-hand side, and the first thing you'll see is the most recent assignment. You'll notice that when I was talking earlier about assigning things to students who enter after, I did not have that option clicked on these first two assignments, and my two students were added after the fact. So I can't even give them grades for those assignments because I didn't have that option selected. So that's, if you're seeing like nothing for students, it might be because you added them after that assignment was created. So from here, you can click on an assignment square to view it. So at the top, if I'm like, oh, I can't remember exactly what this was, I can click on this getting to know you, and it will open me up the assignment, and I could go in and look at, okay, what was it that I assigned? So if I go back, so I'm going to go back using this little back button within the assignment viewer. I can also from here export grades to Excel. So this is where if for some reason you wanted a paper copy or you wanted to export it to Excel, just maybe it's easier for you to view on paper to like transfer into Skyward or something like that. So the export to Excel button, and then it automatically downloaded at the bottom of my screen here. So if I open it, you won't be able to see it, but just know that the gradebook, you can export it. Those little tags that I was talking about, so in the gradebook, it shows you those tags. So this is also just a nice way to kind of stay organized or just make sure that you're kind of covering all the different things you want to cover. So on week 2 quiz, I've tagged it with quiz and I can see that. So this first getting to know you and then the second getting to know you don't have any tags because I didn't tag them. So that space is just empty. I can also view the status of student work. So I only have 2 students in here and they haven't done a whole lot, but if I look at these boxes, so you can't, there's nothing there, but if a student had looked at the assignment, it would say viewed. If they turned something in, but I haven't graded it yet, it would say turned in. I can also edit the points, so I could just go in and type in, so this week 2 quiz, oh, it's not due till tomorrow, but if I was here, I could say I wanted to give them 10 points, so I can modify grades within the grade book. There's also the 3 little dots in each square, so if I open that up, I can return student work. So if I, Brian, he got 5 out of 10 points and maybe I wanted to return this so he could keep working. So if I return that, let's see, it should say returned. Just refresh the page really quick. So I thought it would tell me, okay, so I can return grades, I can change them. I can also open student work. So if I wanted to go back, maybe Brian, made some changes, made some edits and then turned it back in, I could go in and open it back up and take a look. So if I open his work. Now I get some more options here as well. So this is where Brian and I both have editing access to this document, because this was that one where I gave each student their own copy. But I can also go in here and I can enter feedback to Brian. I can give points. I'd already returned it, so that's why that option isn't available here. But I can give individual student feedback, and I can do that through the gradebook as one option to get there. So I'm going to go ahead and close. Oh, at the top here, before I close really fast, if you're grading student work, instead of going in and out over and over again for like to move from student to student, there's these little arrows. And if I click the next one, I get to the next student in the list. So you don't have to go back and forth between, you know, all these different windows. If each student has their own stuff here, I can just move from student to student using this top bar, and I can do a drop down and maybe type in a name. So if I'm looking for someone in particular, or I can select them from the list. So a nice, handy way to grade quicker than having to go search for each student's work. All right. The other thing before we move on to kind of communication is if I click on a student name, I can see all of the assignments that they have so far and what their status is and the number of points. So this is a nice way. I can also export this to Excel. So if you're having, you know, meeting with a student's parents or just having something where you need individual student reports, you can do that through, if I go back, I'll do that one more time. So through the gradebook, if I click on an individual student's name, it shows me all of the assignments and their status and points. All right. Okay, so student and parent communication. So we saved it till the end, and it always kind of feels like not very exciting, but the parent access in Teams is very minimal, and parents don't even access Teams. If it's enabled by the district, you will have the option to enable parents' weekly summaries. So this is something, if you don't, like I don't even have that option. So if I go up into my name up here and go to settings, it is in, actually, I lied. So if I go to sandbox, now I'm all mixed up. Let me just make sure I get this right. So sorry everybody, let me just, I just wanted to show you the team. So in Microsoft Support, they actually do have a handy little guide. So because I didn't see this in mine, I just wanted you to be able to see what it would look like. So if your district has enabled parent summaries, so what it does on their side is that your district IT folks have to sync the parent emails that are attached to the students in your student information system. And so you're not even adding emails, it's doing all of that on the back end. So you'll want to talk to your district to see if they've turned this on or not. And then when you go to manage teams, so I was right the second time. So if I go back into Teams, if I click on this next to the sandbox, if I manage the team, if that option was available under settings, it's one of the options on this list. So you can see on mine, I don't have a parent or guardian option, but if your district has it on, you could enable that option underneath your settings for each team. So maybe we can throw the link to this. I can put that in the chat at the end of the session here. Okay, so the other, some communicating with students. So you can communicate with students a couple different ways. So you can @ them in the general post. And I think there was a question on the first day is if you @ someone in particular, if it's private. And I was doing some Googling, and it is just a way to get their attention. But everyone can see everything in that you post in a channel. So just so you know, it does notify them in particular, but it's not going to be a private chat. If you want to private chat, you'd want to go over to the chat function above the Teams option on the left-hand bar. So to communicate with students, you can at them. You can in the sandbox, so in your title, so whatever your team is, mine is sandbox. And if I go to the 3 dots and go to manage team, when I look at individual members, if I open this up, I can, if I hover over a student's name, depending, and this is going to really depend on what your district has set up, but I can see emails, contact information, but I can, this little button will give me chat, and I can email them directly from this screen as well. So just another way to contact students through Teams. You can also, you know, individual with students, I wouldn't suggest doing calls and maybe even chats, but if you're, you know, wanting to talk to a group of students or wanting to just check in, there's the call and chat feature as well as the meet feature inside Teams itself. So I think that kind of covers communication. The personal notifications, so some of these, a lot of people always ask, like, do students get emailed or how do they know when I talk to them? And a lot of that will depend on what their notification settings are. So each individual person needs to set up some of those things for themselves. So on the teacher end, and this will be similar for students, if you go up to, yours might be a picture or maybe it says your name, but at the top right corner of the screen, if I open this up and then go to settings, I know Andrew took you guys through some of these on the first day, but he skipped over notifications because we were going to talk about it today. So if I click on notifications, for the teacher, you have even more options, but students will also have options for themselves. So there's a whole list of things that you can decide to change. So if you see the word banner, that's that little thing that comes up in the bottom left corner. So if you want kind of that pop-up or an email or both. So you can kind of see what the different options are. We won't go through them all, but students will also have something similar. So if someone messages me in a chat message, do I want it to notify me? So when you're communicating with students, if you want them to have the banner up so that it notifies them if they're on, you just want to have that conversation with students. If you know how you want to communicate with them, just make sure that they're getting the notifications that kind of match how you want to get their attention. All
Amy,
right.
just one
Yep.
question from the chat.
Yep.
You showed how to communicate with an individual student. Can you show how to communicate with the entire class at the same time?
Let's see. So Pete, can you walk me through it? I'm trying to think of how.
So I was able to do, I was looking at that question and it looks like you have to add a tag before you'd be able to use the chat feature with the whole class. You would have to add a tag, manage tags, right from that button. You create a tag and then you would have to load in all the students. That's the one way I have found. I'm not sure if Pete has another direction.
I was just gonna, where you show your students in the class, so members and guests, is there an option to highlight all students? Okay, nope, I don't think there is. I don't, other than the stream.
Yeah, I was
on
just,
the main.
and that's what I was thinking too, Pete. I think because it's the post and kind of that stream or start a conversation, this is what Teams is offering for communicating with like everybody. So, and you can do that in the channels too, but if you're wanting to communicate to like your whole team, you would do that through the general post and stream.
Yeah, and what I teach my students to do is to set their notifications like Amy just showed so that they are notified. Maybe it's a pop-up, maybe it slides in as a banner, maybe it's an email every time there's a new post. That way they don't miss out. They don't have to come in and check the post. They can just know that they're going to get notified somehow that there is a new post.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always different ways to do all of these things. So sometimes specific questions, we always have to kind of go run through all the list of options. So good question though.
2-minute warning.
Thank you. All right, so before we wrap up, we want to give you a moment to synthesize and apply. So if you could take our day 3 reflection. This one has a few more questions than day 1 and 2, just to also give us some feedback on how the last 3 days went for you. So if you can, that QR code, remember if you have a smartphone enabled QR thing, if you just hold up like you're going to take a picture, it will take you to that survey with your phone, or you can use the link in the chat. So I'll leave that up for a couple more seconds. And then as we leave today, just a final reminder that if you're wanting to dig in more to sign up for those that on-demand course of Microsoft Teams. So all of the stuff we covered is there for you, and you can dig in, and there's little chunks of videos and reflection questions and discussions. So definitely take that opportunity if you're wanting more. And then we really just encourage you to connect with colleagues and your district around grading and attendance policies and the use of your LMS. And then thinking about communication plans. So with this one in particular, talk with your district to see if they're planning on integrating parent emails. And then that AESD website, remember the link is in the slide deck that you have. And then in about a week or so, maybe a few days longer, you'll get an email with clock hours and some other, we'll be communicating, resources and that kind of stuff. So we thank you all for joining us for the last 3 days, and we hope you have a great start to your school year.
Thanks, everyone.
And like we always do at the end of Zoom, we'll just wave.
Yep, I'm just giving another minute before I end the meeting so that people can grab the slide deck if they did not get it already. We will be sending out an email with all 3 slide decks probably tomorrow, if not later tonight. Thank you, everyone.